Hello folks, good morning, and what a beautiful day it is here in sunny Sheffield. Thanks for joining us. We're live here at the National Emergency Services Museum, but I'd also like to say a big hello to everyone who's watching us online and on demand, particularly at the Start and the Yorkshire Post Facebook pages. My name's Graham Walker, and it's a real privilege and a pleasure to be here today to host this special conversation for the launch of Defiant Voices, which is this brand new book here, The Blitz Kids of Sheffield, the last survivors, to mark the 85th anniversary of the Sheffield Blitz, the devastating World War II bombings of December 12th and 15th, particularly 1940. Well, I'm delighted to be joined by the author of the book, that's Neil Anderson, who's really is the world expert in the Sheffield Blitz, been studying it for 15 years and has got a series of great books out about it, and now this one. We'll also be speaking to two of the survivors from the Sheffield Blitz, Eric Smith and Don Johnson. So over 660 people were killed, 1,500 injured, and thousands made homeless in the city's darkest hours. It was the experience that the rest of us hope that we will never see again in our lifetimes. But the defiant voices that we're talking about in this book, they honour the resilience of this city and commemorate the victims. And remind us of the human cost of war, which is obviously as relevant today as ever. Sheffield Blitz Memorial Trust, with the help of the National Lottery Heritage Fund, has produced the book, and it's available now. It's available here at the museum, but it's also available online, and we'll be giving lots of information about that for people who are watching this live stream. The National Lottery Heritage Fund also helped to bring the Blitz Walking Tour app up to speed, and it's now got AI, video content, and lots of other things we'll be telling you about. And it's also a new permanent Sheffield Blitz exhibition right here at the museum. We were here for the launch of that back in December to commemorate the actual anniversary date, and we've got a fabulous little video that we'll show to our online viewers at the end. So if you're watching online, please stick through to the end. You'll love that. So, ladies and gentlemen, please give a special welcome to Neil Anderson.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So I know we've got lots of imagery online that we're going to be showing, but this is the book, the brand new book that's out. Neil, you've spent years, as we've said, researching the Sheffield Blitz. What made you kind of realise that we needed a book to commemorate the voices of the children?
I think for me, because I've had the privilege of interviewing so many people that were in the Blitz, and they, open up their lives, stories, and I quickly realised, depending on what age you were, you had a very different perspective about the war, about what happened in the Blitz, and I was just amazed. I think it was the first person I interviewed was probably 12, 13 years ago, and it was a chap again who was a Blitz kid, and his residing memory of the war was sadness. Was the fact this great big adventure had finished. I thought, wow, that's totally, different perspective. So I thought it was really, and then obviously say you've got parents, grandparents, understandably scared witless about, what was happening and the outbreak of war in 39.
Yeah, well, I guess that, having read the book, there's some amazing stories in here. And there's always another new book, isn't there? I mean, I know that one of the things that is not mentioned in here is, for instance, the little girl who got the teddy bear. and which is here in the exhibition, which was one of the last things bought at Atkinson's. Was
Atkinson's store, yes, the last,
just before it was
yes,
blown.
before it was flattened.
So there's always stories that we can't tell, but there are amazing stories in here. And I wondered, was there a moment or a memory that really stopped you in your tracks?
I think they say there's just so many, you know, it's such a devastating event, you know, those kind of memories that day is just, you know, stuck in the minds of, you know, everybody that we experienced it. Bizarrely, I think it was actually, I think it was actually my dad. My dad's here today, a third Blitz kid we've got in the room. But it was the fact that his family lived on Bodmin Street in Attercliffe. Absolute eye of the storm, the big brown vein steelworks at the bottom of the street. You know, nobody was in any doubt that Sheffield was going to be, you know, high on Hitler's hit list, but it was always, they always saw that the East End, the armament factories, the steelworks were going to be the prime target. And I was amazed that, you know, my dad wasn't evacuated, none of his friends were evacuated. I think Sheffield had one of the lowest evacuation rates in the whole country. And I just couldn't imagine, you know, the thinking that, you know, you say that you've got this massive target at the end of your street, but, you know, you were still here in the eye of the storm. So that really stuck with me.
Yeah. I mean, many of the witnesses, they're now obviously, you know, in the 80s and 90s. I guess there's always an urgency, isn't there, to capture the stories, because we don't want them to disappear. We want their stories to be told. Is it right and proper, you think, that we've done this now at the 85th anniversary?
Well, so I think this is going to be the last chance to, you know, it's so important that we, you know, record the memories of the last generation. You know, I've spent many years kind of doing that, and it was really, I think we've been very lucky, fortunate that that we've had the backing of the National Lottery Heritage Fund, that they saw the importance of what we were doing, you know, what we've been able to achieve in the last 15 years. In fact, we've got this wonderful permanent exhibition downstairs. I've got to take my hat off to my colleagues Richard and Matt over there, that's, you know, helped all these, you know, ideas together. So, you know, but I think it's so important to record these memories.
Well, I think, you know, you've mentioned the National Lottery funding grant that's been crucial, really, to make things happen, because the book's only part of the story, isn't it, of the 85th anniversary, because we've got the upgraded app, which gives you a walking tour, and you've got this fantastic exhibition here, which is now permanent at the National Emergency Services Museum here in the heart of Sheffield. Can you just tell us a little bit about that? And just before we talk a little bit more about the book, again, give us an overview of the Blitz itself. And we've brought it to life, haven't we, with some AI footage that's turned real photographs into footage that's really never been, well, it's obviously never been seen before, but it's really brought the story to life. I think we can show a bit of that while you're talking about the Blitz.
I think you say with these projects, it's all about really how you kind of tell the story to, you know, different generations. So, you know, a lot of older generations will still prefer, understandably, the printed page. So it's essential to have the books. Obviously, a lot younger people are, you know, getting their media in very different ways. So to be able to kind of use AI digitally, you know, to really kind of explain what happens is just another way of doing it. There's been the 85th project. It's been a two-year project to, you know, create a legacy around the 85th anniversary. There's been lots of different things we've done, from a website to podcast work, to the exhibition, to the AI work, to the walk-in app. So it's, you know, and it's all based around all these amazing stories. So it's probably doing a disservice to all the people. It wasn't really me that actually wrote it. I did a foreword. It's the stories of the survivors. They're the legacy, and the whole idea originally came from a guy called Frank Donnelly, who was worked at the Aero Venture museum in Doncaster. He actually started collecting stories from Blitz kids many years ago, and then he passed on the mantle to us to, thought we could really take this forward. So there's some of Frank's original work in there, which has really just been bolstered by the amazing interviews that we've done over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, Neil, as well, that people often talk about the statistics of the Blitz, and I gave some at the start of this, about 660 people killed, which is an incredible amount of people when you think about the dark hours of Sheffield's history. 1,500 injured, thousands made homeless. And we are privileged to have their stories now captured of the people, of the last living survivors of it. But what do those personal stories reveal that our history books don't?
What do they reveal? I think just everybody experienced it in a different way. I thought the resilience is absolutely incredible. That was the thing that really, was hammered home to me. But I think, studying the Blitz over many years, there was a lot of people said the reason they hit, which we all always assumed that, they were out to flatten the armaments factories of the East End. And it very quickly came to apparent to me when I was studying it. So, if they were wanting to hit the East End, why are they dropping bombs in Dore and Totley? There was hardly a suburb that wasn't hit over those 2 nights. Nearly a tenth of the city's population made homeless. Absolutely incredible. It was, as part of my research, we actually uncovered some original German bombing maps of Sheffield, and even though the armaments factories were down as targets, they were actually down as secondary targets. Primary targets were down as schools and hospitals and museums. I think it was nearly a third of the city's schools were hit. So it certainly, it was my kind of realisation that, it seems to be far more of a terror raid to terrorise the public into submission. But exactly, the opposite happened. It actually kind of energised the public and got them more behind the war than ever before.
Well, we actually went to Bramall Lane as part of the filming that we did, didn't we? And you got a real scale of it there when you realise that how far away from munitions factories that was, and they were targeting really civilian life in a bit to wear us down.
Yeah, civilian life.
But they didn't, did they?
No, and bizarrely, I think it was about 1 day or 2 days after the Blitz, the front page of the Star was a picture of the Vulcan statue off the top of the town hall, just with the headline, Defiant. And even Winston Churchill held up Sheffield as an example to the whole country about, how the city's resilience and how it conducted itself.
Well, in terms of the word resilience, I mean, the many stories of survivors that you've processed to get into the book, what do they say about Sheffield's resilience as a city?
It's just amazing. I think for me that's one of the key legacies. The key legacies that that should be remembered, that helped get Sheffield through those incredibly dark days. It took so much of, say, the city centre was totally flattened, and say the moor was totally obliterated, and so many of the European cities, which had devastating bombings, so many of the European cities actually rebuilt their old buildings like for like. Sheffield, like many of the UK cities, didn't, and that's why there's so much of 60s quite faceless concrete around. Great swathes of, say, where Castle Market was, that was all rebuilt. All the more, so much of it's such a reason why so much of the city looks like it does.
There's a great little video that you've done as part of the 85th anniversary, and you actually take people pretty much on that guided tour and look at some of the sites, including the moor, where Atkinson's got rebuilt, but also we look at other areas, including Bramall Lane. It's really a great watch for anybody who wants a little bit more information on that. For people discovering the Sheffield Blitz story for the first time, Neil, what do you hope they take away from Defiant Voices? Is there a clue in the title?
Probably say it all leads back to this probably kind of defiance, but for me, it's so important to, you know, remember, commemorate what happened here 85 years ago. I remember when I started looking into the Blitz 15 years ago, I got no idea, you know, about the devastation, the size of what happened. And the first book that I wrote on the 70th anniversary was called Sheffield's Date with Hitler. And I was, humble really that the BBC turned it into a documentary. But they actually titled the documentary Sheffield, the Forgotten Blitz. And it was that really kind of, say back then there was no exhibitions, not, you know, really. So that suddenly set me up on this journey. That, you know, there really should be so much more to commemorate what happened here 85 years ago.
Well, we were saying there are always those stories that somehow slip through the net. Do you think that we've finished now, or do you think there'll be more books?
I don't think you'll ever finish. It was such a, you know, devastating, you know, this was part of, you know, any family that was here in 1940, you know, the Blitz is part of their legacy, you know, horrendous things happen. There's still, you know, the Marples, the site of the biggest single loss of life. There's still bodies, you know, buried under Fitzallen Square, you know, places like Devonshire Green, you know, so many of us just know it's just this wonderful inner city park. It used to be, you know, a thriving community of back-to-back housing, which was, you know, totally levelled on the back of the Blitz. Horrendous loss of life.
I think that the thing is as well, in terms of a younger generation, you almost think that this is history book stuff that might be medieval times, but it was so like almost yesterday, wasn't it, that it happened. We see all this devastation now in the Middle East and all the bombings, and we think we're so far removed, but we're not, are we?
No, not at all. And say I traced my own family's history back to World War One. That my great granddad, he was in the Sheffield Pals battalion that fought in the horrendous Battle of the Somme. Amazingly, he survived. But it was actually found in a memoir when my grandma died 15 years ago. That was the catalyst that set off this whole big chain of events. But there was quite a few. She writes a lot in there about, you know, what her dad felt that the country could be, you know, counting down to another war so soon after the last one. It was just absolutely, and the amount of people that I have interviewed that's spoken about the key Chamberlain address to the nation in September 39, where, you know, said that Britain was going to be at war again. You could just see the, you know, still the kind of tears welling in their eyes, you know, decades later, what a, you know, devastating it was.
I wanted to ask, in terms of, I don't know how many survivors that you've got in the book, but there must be a general feeling from them all in terms of how they look back on that period of time now. And with some surprises. I mean, like you say, there was also almost a bit of excitement about what was happening as well.
Well, absolutely. You know, so many, I spoke to so many Blitz kids, university comments that, you know, they used to collect shrapnel. That was a very, you know, common thing happening. They spent years, you know, their playgrounds was the bomb sites. They grew up with it, and, you know, they just became, you know, a place of adventure.
And we can still see some of the marks on Sheffield today, like the City Hall, for instance.
Yeah, so city at the front of Sheffield City Hall, the Corinthian pillars, there's pot marks in there from shrapnel damage. That's one of the few things you can, unless you start, say, I think once you've studied this for as many years as me, you can start spotting lots of other signs, but it's a miracle that the City Hall actually survived World War II. A big landmine landed in Barker's Pool outside. It was only because it landed in an emergency water tank that shielded the blast. I think it hit it wrecked some of the steps which had to be built, and say there's shrapnel damage, but other than that, it's amazing it survived.
But although there are these very kind of famed, infamous stories about what happened to Sheffield, I guess the survivors are telling the everyday things about going to the cinema and being disrupted, about what it was like going in a Anderson shelter, and then coming out the next day and finding that your environment had gone.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's not forgetting that, you know, that it wasn't just 2 nights of bombing. You know, the air raid sirens went off the night, you know, the day war was declared. That was, you know, many people's first day. You know, people were in these Anderson shelters, you know, scores, you know, 6 year, you know, from 39 to 45. I think the last bomb was a V2 bomb that I think it was Christmas Eve, 1944. So, you know, this constant fear, you know, was just going on for, you can't even imagine what it must have been to endure all that.
Yeah, and you're quite right. And, you know, those stories, it's great that they're now being preserved in this book. It's fantastic, Neil. Full credit to you. I don't know how many of you have got the book already, but if you've not, I would truly urge you to go out and buy it or get it online. And all the other books that Neil's written about the Sheffield Blitz are so enlightening. I think we can't forget yesterday, because we've got to try and change tomorrow, haven't we?
I couldn't agree more. Agree more.
But yeah, and obviously you've spent a lot of your life doing this, Neil. In terms of the survivors that we've got, which is great, and long may they survive, and long may you all be here with us, guys. But you know, I remember as a kid looking at the First World War veterans, and they died away, and then the Second World War veterans. Now, this truly is the last generation, the Blitz kids, who can remember World War II.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so these amazing people are now in the late 80s, 90s, and it's just been, you know, it's been such a privilege to be able to, you know, spend time and give us their amazing stories.
How did you manage to make contact with them, Neil? And you know, were you surprised how many came forward?
Again, it's thinking, right, you know, this kind of, at one time we'd have just put an article in the Star and it would just reach the whole, you know, and the world has changed so much. So, you know, it's really, I've built up quite strong networks over the years, but, you know, there's such a, we've kind of put call out through probably the Star, through Facebook, you know, all sorts of areas, and, you know, we are very lucky that people, you know, and I found generally that people have probably been more maybe open with their experiences more as they've actually got, you know, because it obviously traumatized a whole generation, and, you know, people have shared some absolutely horrific stories. But
thank goodness that they're prepared to talk about them. And I guess there are some go-to people who've got just great stories to tell. I mean, horrific stories, but I suppose those stories have lasted a lifetime, haven't they? And we've got 2 gentlemen here with us today. In fact, we've got 3, including your dad. But we've got 2 gentlemen here today who are going to tell us a little bit about their own personal memories of the Sheffield Blitz, and that's Eric Smith and Don Johnson. And so I think what we're going to do at this moment, at the end, if you've got any questions, we'll do a little Q&A. But first of all, I'd like to invite them up individually, and for you, Neil, just to have a little chat with them, and they can tell you, or they can tell us all their own stories. So I'm going to have to swap my mics over a little bit here and give up my chair. But could I invite Eric to come up first and come and say a few words, Eric? So while
I had the privilege of spending time with Eric. Let's give Eric a round of applause. So Eric, you were...
I'm just going to pin my mic onto Eric so that our audience can...
You were 10 years old when when the war broke out. You were living in Meersbrook, and you were in Healy Palace Cinema.
Correct.
Where, well, for anybody that doesn't know where that was, it's near where Hunsford's furniture shop is now. So that's where you were when the sirens rang out, 7 o'clock I think it was, on the first night of the Blitz. What can you kind of remember from the hours leading up to that cinema trip?
The background was that I just had a birthday, my mother had just had a birthday, and we were celebrating. And so we went to the Healy Palace as a celebration. Some celebration.
And were you kind of aware that other cities had already been bombed at that point, other UK cities?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Were you aware that other UK cities had already been bombed at that point?
At that point, never as much of going to the cinema, sitting back, enjoying it, and it was only after about an hour of the film that we realised there was a raid. Up till then, we had raids, but not many, and they've mainly been nuisance raids. And so a lot of people have become quite used to the sirens going, and then you had to decide, do you want to take precautions against it, or is this just another nuisance raid? I wanted to see the film. I was a little boy, and
what was the film? I do need to know what film it was. Can you remember what film it was?
Yes, it was The Young Tom Edison with Mickey Rooney.
Okay.
Now you may say, what a memory. I did look it up actually.
Well remembered anyway.
Yeah. And no, I wanted to stay there. I wanted to see the film. My mother was probably half and half, and the screen had a means of putting a message over the top of the film you were watching, and the first message came up that there was a warning, a raid was possible. And so I talked my mother into staying, and then on the second stage it became probable, but we still stayed. And then on the third stage, no, get out quick.
Wow.
And we did, and we were probably in as bad a place as we could have chosen, because the cinema was alongside the main line from Sheffield, north and south. Runs along parallel with Chesterfield Road, Aberdale Road, and where the cinema was a railway bridge over the road. And we came out, and by then the raid had started, and the guns were banging away. Bombs must have been dropping, but it was hard to know which was a gun and which was a bomb. But we walked, and again the road is parallel with the railway line. But we went along, and it was obviously getting worse. We got to the bottom of Valley Road, which was our road, and the warden came out of the shadows and grabbed us and pushed us into a shelter. And that was at the junction of Chesterfield Road and Valley Road. Now, anyone who knows or remembers the road, there used to be a bank on the corner, a NatWest Bank, and we spent the evening in the cellars of NatWest Bank.
Wow.
We might have come out rich, but we didn't. And we stayed there until 3 o'clock in the morning. It was a bad night, and then we made our way home.
Wow. And how was it kind of looking back, what was your single strongest memory of the Blitz?
Of the Blitz, a long night, a cold night in the cellar, fear when bombs dropped, but it wasn't continuous. The planes must have come over in waves, and so it would be bad for a quarter of an hour, say, and then there'd be a half hour's lull. And I think we just hung on to each other, tried to sleep, and hoped that this lull would be the end of the raid. And it wasn't, of course. They'd come back half an hour later, and they'd go through it again.
Yeah, I think it was 4:17 was the all clear. And how was living through World War II shaped your life?
I'd say little boys, if they've got a football, they soon forget many things. They just chase the football, and gradually things settle down, and it got easier, of course. Fewer and fewer raids later on in the war, and we just learned to live with it.
Well, thank you.
The hardest thing probably were the shortages.
Yeah. But no, thank you ever so much for sharing your memories, Eric. It's been a real privilege to spend time and put you in the book. Can we give a round of applause for Eric Kelly?
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. That was wonderful. So could we invite
Dom
to come up now? Come on, let's give him a round of applause.
Round of applause for Dom.
You just take your seat, Dom. I'll just pin the mic on you, and then give you this microphone. If you can just speak into that, that's lovely. Thank you ever so much.
So, Don, you were, I think, 8 years old when war broke out. Take us back to 1940. What do you remember about your life in Sheffield as an 8-year-old before the bombing started?
I remember it being very hard. As a family, we didn't have a lot. And like a lot of other families in the 30s, we struggled. We really did struggle. But leading up to the Blitz, I don't remember much of it at all, actually. Quite frankly, Neil, until you interviewed me, the Blitz was buried in the back of my head, in my mind. And I never gave it a second thought until that day. So I blame you for that.
It's okay. So your family got an Anderson shelter in the garden?
We had an Anderson shelter, yes. I helped, in inverted commas, my father to put it in. He was very good at woodwork, and he built it with bunks, etc. It wasn't home from home, but it was livable. And we used to go to the Anderson shelter every night, regardless of whether the sirens went or not, except for one night.
So tell me about that night.
That night, we had next door an old lady living with us, and she had an adult son. And my father and he were friends. And that night, they decided to go for a drink. So my mother said, "We won't leave the old lady on her own. We'll go and keep her company." So off we went next door. And that was the first night that we didn't go in the shelter. We were okay. We passed time on, and we must have been playing games or something as kids. But eventually we could hear the bombs and the guns. We didn't live too far away from, there was a Ackhack gun site on the top of Shirecliffe, opposite where the Shirecliffe Football Academy is now. There was a lot of noise coming from there, but I don't think they ever hit anything. We sat in the old ladies, but the strange thing was, as we were walking round there, we saw the parachutes coming down, and we thought they were enemy troops.
Oh, okay, yeah.
We didn't realise they were landmines. And at that time, We lived just off the corner of a cul-de-sac. And this landmine dropped right in the centre of the cul-de-sac, and it devastated everything in sight. Our house, which was just round the corner, didn't get a direct hit, but it did blow the windows out and the outdoors off. So that's what happened to us.
And your mum did something.
I wasn't. My mother, when we heard the bombs dropping, she shoved me and my siblings under the table with the old lady, laid on top of us, and she was very, very badly injured. She carried the scars for the rest of her life. She had scars down her arms and on the back.
One of the things that really stuck with me when I interviewed you was the fact that you were taken to Northern General Hospital that night. You know, what do you remember from the casualty department?
I remember the Northern General very well. We came out of the house and my father was there with a policeman. Didn't know what to do, and they said, you better go down to the hospital. Luckily, we only lived about 1.25 miles away from the hospital, so we walked down to the hospital. We went into what was termed in those days the casualty department. It was in darkness, apart from tilly lamps. And my abiding memory of that night, it lives with me forever. We walked in and they had stretchers across the seats and they were operating with tilly lights as the only lights, no anaesthetics, and all you could hear was the screams of the injured when they were operating on them.
I can't even imagine. See, I can't imagine how you process that as a young person at all, and carry that with you your whole.
That will carry me to the day I die.
Yeah, yeah. And you, looking back now, what do you think people should understand about, you know, what children of your generation experienced during the Blitz?
I can tell you what happened after that. We were taken down to what used to be known as the Sheffield Asylum in Fairvale. And we stayed there overnight. There was one very funny incident that happened. I woke up the next morning, I was still in my night clothes, and they dressed me. I had shorts down to my ankles, and they gave me a man's pullover to wear. I remember it well. And this pullover, the thing I remember about it was, we were poor, but we were clean. What I remember about this, it had a big hole right in the centre. And I always remember that thinking, what have they done to me? Yeah. We stayed in I still call it the asylum. We stayed there for a few days, and then we were moved out and billeted with various people across the city.
Thank you very much for that, Don. Thank you very, very much. Really appreciate, you know, it must be very painful.
It is painful.
Memories. I really appreciate you taking the time. Well, you know, letting me interview and being part of today. Can we give a big round of applause for Don and for Eric? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sam. That's wonderful. Let me just get this on the microphone. Thank you ever so much for your time. I'll just re-click my microphone, folks, and
And I'm just going to mention, as well as the survivor memories, we've got an amazing part, an additional chapter at the end about the experiences of Royce Fiddler, who was actually, he was part of the British bomber raids on Germany. He was shot down His story is absolutely incredible.
So
What he went
is
through.
this in the book?
This is in the book. We've got some of his relatives. We've got his daughter Maxine. Gives a wave there. Hello, Maxine.
Can you just stand up, Maxine, so our online crowd can see? Give us a wave.
And really just what he went through in the prisoner of war camp, the fact he escaped, through his help with the German resistance, survived. Incredible.
So what was his
story.
age, Neil?
What was his age? But he was only a young lad, wasn't he? 19. Yeah.
Because we call this, the book is the Blitz Kids, but
Absolutely.
I guess he pretty much still,
Yeah, absolutely.
as many of our
People
service
had to grow
members.
up incredibly fast, didn't they?
Yeah.
Incredibly fast.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think what that's just done there, I mean, I must admit, I was kind of moved to tears there with what Eric and what Don was saying. And what they witnessed and what they had to endure, it makes a mockery almost of when we complain today, doesn't it, about society? You know?
Absolutely.
They don't make them like this anymore, do
Not
they?
at all.
You know?
Not at all. No.
So it's wonderful. I just want to reflect on people who might have only just joined the stream, just to remind them, Neil, about the Defiant Voices, the Blitz Kids of Sheffield. Can you just tell us again a little bit about the book, where you can get it from, other books that are available, and why it's important that people should pick a copy of this one? Really?
Yeah, well, this wonderful book, you can actually pop down to the National Emergency Services Museum and buy a copy, which is £10.95. You can also get them on Amazon at dirtystopouts.com, and you can order them from any bookshop. So I think that I've lost track of the amount of books I've done around Sheffield Blitz World War II. I did a big definitive edition box set.
So some people, it might raise a few eyebrows when you tell people to buy a Blitz book at Dirty Stopouts guide. But
Well,
just
there's a reason for that.
Just want to remind people that you're also have made a great reputation for yourself about chronicling the nightlife of Sheffield and other cities through generations, through the different books you've done. This is a bit of a departure, but it equally takes up quite a big part of your life, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, up until the first time I'd written about the Blitz, most of my writing was about entertainment, music, looking into past decades. You know, it was all great fun, all very frivolous. And when it was actually coming up to the 70th anniversary of the Blitz, and I realised nobody was writing anything, I thought, right, I'd really like to interested in tackling this subject, but I was really, really quite nervous, quite wary. I thought this is something that really, affected, killed thousands of people, and I just read absolutely everything I could find before I felt, that I could even start to put my head above the parapets and, really just try and, write in a way that would honour, the victims, what Sheffield went through. So it was a big change, but thankfully, so far, the books have been well received.
And it came to a bit of a head, didn't it, with the 85th anniversary? I mean, you've done some sterling work with your partner in crime as well, Richard, who's done some amazing work with you. I think we've got to give special mention to Matt Wakefield here at the museum and the staff here. I think a permanent exhibition's a bit of a no-brainer, really, that should be here, but it had been neglected, really, to some degree, hadn't it, until Matt and his team put something together and it's now been advanced.
When we had this documentary came out, Sheffield Forgot Blitz, I actually discovered there was a Sheffield Blitz exhibition, but it was in Doncaster. I thought, why is it in Doncaster?
Yeah.
But part of the story was that it used to be in the department store, Atkinson's, and sorry, not Atkinson's. What's the department store in Attercliffe? Come on, somebody. Banners. It used to be in Banners, and they were reconfiguring the building. And I think a chap moved it. The only place he could find to put it was Aeroventure in Doncaster. That was the reason that it was there. So it was amazing. They actually, when we were lucky enough to get the money from the lottery to put the first. So the exhibition now we've got downstairs, that's doubled in size. The original one that we put in, we had some stuff loaned from Doncaster, which was really, really good. But I think the visitor figures for this museum doubled when the the Blitz exhibition first opened. So it just really shows how important it is for people.
For people watching online and even the live audiences today, if you want to watch this back on demand, we've got a fantastic little video that looks at some of the highlights of the exhibition and the opening as well. And I'm sure, Matt, that everybody here today will be welcome to actually go around and have a look at that, which will be a really fitting way to end your outing here to the museum today. But like I said, we've got a great little film, so just watch to the end of the talk, and we'll play that for you. But we've got a few stills from the opening as well that we can show. The one, a fantastic fire engine that belonged to Barnsley and were loaned to Sheffield for the Blitz work, and that's been repaired. That looks amazing. We had another Blitz survivor, I forget her name now, but she came and she opened up, didn't she, cut the ribbon?
She did back in December.
Yeah. And there's also this fantastic teddy bear story that I mentioned right at the start. Well, I know we've got a picture, we could probably show that online to our online. Because just remind us about that wonderful story, because it's like the stories that Eric and Dom have been telling us. It's these things that really bring the story to life.
Yeah, it was a lady that contacted me out of the blue that they got. So Atkinson's is the last surviving independent Sheffield department store, but like all the independent stores that were around in the war, they all got flattened. So Atkinson's is the last surviving one. Anyway, on the night of the Blitz, it was nearing 12th of December. A chap was dashing around town trying to get a present for his daughter, because he was on his. He left it very late. Anyway, Atkinson's was just shutting for the day, and he suddenly managed to persuade them to let him into the shop. Rushed over, bought this teddy bear. Doors shut. Within hours, the whole store had been flattened. So this was the last ever, item, this teddy bear, bought from Atkinson's before it was razed to the ground. And this teddy bear for his daughter has been treasured her entire life. She's kept it kind of with her. And she kindly has given it on loan to, it looks a bit weather-beaten without a doubt, but it's got an incredible history. So that was a big part. You can go downstairs and see that.
So another Blitz survivor.
Absolutely.
And actually a part of the exhibition.
A big part, yeah.
And although it might not have a voice as such, it's got a great story.
A very good story, yeah.
Brilliant. All right, well, listen, I think we're just about wrapping, but I'd just like to see if there are any questions from the audience, if anybody has got anything they'd like to ask either Neil or maybe some of the other survivors that are here. Could you just hold just a fire second? I'll bring the microphone over so that... Could you just give me a second? I'll just come over to you. Hang on. Let me just get you on here so that we can so our online audience can hear.
It's not me who needs to talk, it's
So who's this, sorry?
This is Mrs. Pemberton, and she is also a Blitz survivor.
Oh wow, fantastic! Hello. What's your first name?
Mavis.
Mavis.
Yeah.
So Mavis, can you just tell us a little bit about your story, about your memories?
Yes, well, I lived at Thurgerland.
Just a minute. Can we get a camera in on? It's Mavis, is it?
Yes.
Right. So Mavis, tell us your wonderful story, your memories of the Blitz.
Yeah. I do remember I was 4, and I remember this having to go to bed early because my mother was pregnant, but I didn't know that then, with twins. And then all of a sudden, during the night, this horrible noise and bombs. And of course, we hardly knew what bombs were, living where I lived.
So you were out at Thurgerland?
Yes, living where I lived. Yeah, it's 10 miles away. Yeah, and then I remember all this noise, and I went to the bedroom door, and my mum and dad were in, and I can remember rattling the snake. and she's saying, go downstairs to your dad, go downstairs to your dad. And I didn't realise, no, she was pregnant, and then the midwife was there. So anyway, I went downstairs and...
Well, it was all happening then, wasn't it?
Yeah, all the windows were out, glass, door was blown in, and we're very lucky to be alive.
Well, it's great that you still are and you're here to tell us your story. Are you featured in the book, Mavis?
We don't know.
Well, if not, Neil, we've got a part 2 to come here, I think.
Photos are in it.
But
Into the house.
well, Mavis, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for telling us your story.
Does the boat, what do they call him?
We had Daniel Joshua.
Yeah.
Film Mavis.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
It will be in the book.
oh, you'll be in the book, so you better be buying a copy now. Well, thank you for your time. I do know we've got another survivor here as well, and I'm going a bit off path here, Neil. But this is your dad. Would you like to say a few words about? Brilliant. I know we've spoken about this before. So, Mr. Hanson, what's your first name?
Hayden.
Hayden, of course. So, Hayden, how proud are you of Neil for producing this book?
Very proud, yeah, indeed.
Are you featured in it?
I don't think so.
He's been in every other book, I think, but he's not. He's having an hour off.
I was only 4-year-old at the Blitz,
Yeah.
so my memories are really sort of noises and smells. Smells from the air raid shelters, smells of paraffin, Hessian, the sacking for the bedding in it, and the sounds were, of course, the planes.
That's amazing. The smells, I mean, we can all account for something in our lives. It brings the memories back.
Well, you
doesn't
spend
it?
and it was the sounds of the air raids. At 4-year-old, I was there. I was listening for the different sounds of the planes.
Wow. So could you actually spot
course,
what plane was from this engine?
There's Goring here,
Yeah.
who was the leader of the Air Force, wasn't he? And he used to say, "That's German plane," and
Incredible, isn't it? I mean, you can't help but not be moved by everybody's personal stories as well.
And I don't know whether it was the Blitz night, but we came out of the shelters. All the windows were blown in, and we had a goldfish in a bowl. Not a drop of water was spilled out of the goldfish.
Thank goodness for that. But it is amazing, isn't it, that how them little memories, they stay with you for life, don't they?
Yeah. I mean, I can't recall any panic from your parents. I mean, my mother, she got my brother, who was called Neil, which is why Neil is called Neil, and she must have been pregnant in 1939, had the baby in 1940, and then the baby got pneumonia and died in 41.
Well, in terms of the book, just final question to you, Aidan. What do you hope today's generation take from the stories that you guys can tell us?
I don't think anything's changed, has it? I mean, it's still going on. Nothing's changed. Well, I mean, we said never again, and again, never again. And here we are.
Yeah, very poignant time, isn't it? Yeah. Well, listen, thank you for that. There you go. Can we have a round of applause for our other survivors here? So there you go, Neil. I can't believe you've not got your own dad in your book, in your book about
I think
Blitz.
he's sick of being in my book.
It was my first port of call, I think. So, mind you, I remember we've spoken to him in the past, and he's got some amazing stories to tell. There's almost a book there in its own right.
There is.
So, in terms of the book, we know it's available where you can get it from. The other books are also available, and I think there's some special discounts, and you can get things like the bombing map as well.
Yeah.
Amazing when you actually discovered that the maps did actually prove that it was a war of terror, not just...
Yeah, it's true, absolutely.
And all that's available Yeah.
Yep, yes it is, it is.
And what of the future? What happens for the 90th anniversary of the Sheffield Blitz?
Well, me and Richard have already been discussing the next project related to the Blitz. We're actually mulling over things around what the rebuild plans were immediately after the Blitz and whether they actually came to fruition. So we'll see if we get backing for that.
There's always another story, isn't there?
It would say it's the Blitz shaped Sheffield, so it's very important that it's remembered as such a big part of its legacy.
And just before we wind up, just what would your parting message be about Defiant Voices in terms of the process of writing it, and really, like I said, why people should pick a copy of this up?
Because it shaped entire lives, it shaped families, it shaped generations, and I'm just humbled and find it such a privilege.
Yeah.
To interview these amazing people.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Well, listen, thanks again, folks, for joining us today for this remarkable book launch, and to all our online viewers as well. This will be available on demand afterwards for anybody that wants to watch, and I'm sure it'll be all over Neil's and Richard's websites and social media. We have got a little video that I'd just like to play out to our online audiences now, which is about the opening of the exhibition here at the National Emergency Services Museum. And I'd just like to say, let's turn those virtual visits into real visits and get yourself down here. It's a little bit of a hidden gem, isn't it, this museum?
Oh, totally.
It's not just about the Blitz, it is about emergency services. I know there's lots of school parties and trips that come here, but if you fancy a great day out, get yourselves down here. It's absolutely fascinating. I think they've even got a lifeboat in the back.
They have actually, yes.
I don't know how they do it. It's like the TARDIS in here. But get yourselves down, and whatever you do, you must pay a visit to the new permanent Sheffield Blitz exhibition. And let's keep alive the fact that this city is proud to be a city of resilience, and it is proud to be defiant. Neil, thank you ever so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, folks, for your time.
So December the 12th and the 15th will always resonate of two of the darkest days in Sheffield's entire history. Over a tenth of the city's population made homeless in the two-night Sheffield Blitz. Nearly over 2,000 people killed and wounded. It took the city years and years to recover, so I think it's so important to commemorate.
Part of the 85th anniversary of the Blitz, we've been able to pull a brand new permanent Blitz exhibition together here at the museum, using some historical photos to have created AI videos that again can be seen within the exhibition and on the app as well. And we've got a fully refurbished Leyland fire engine from Barnsley that came into Sheffield to help during the Blitz. There's lots of things different in it compared to the older exhibition. We've got lots more smaller objects, personal stories, and one of the human stories behind one of the objects that we've got as well is a little teddy bear that was one of the last things to be sold out of the Atkinson store before it was bombed.
So this is my mum's lovely teddy bear, and the family story is that it was the last item to be bought from Atkinson's department store here in Sheffield before the Blitz. My grandfather was a steel worker, and he came to the shop on his way home from work to buy a Christmas present for my mum, who was 2 at the time. They were closing up, but they knew it was a teddy bear for Christmas, so they held the door open for him. And he left and went home, and that night Atkinson's was hit in the bombing raid and completely destroyed.
We looked at the 85th as being a major anniversary due to the fact that a lot of people that have memories probably would be in the late 80s or 90s. Obviously, part of this process was applying to National Heritage Lottery Fund, which gave us a budget of just over 91,000 that enabled us to put on a lot of activities, do the exhibition, do printed materials, and obviously do the AI stuff and the app stuff as well, so we could get that out to as many people beyond Sheffield as well as Sheffielders themselves.
We've got a brand new book, Defiant Voices, the Blitz Kids of Sheffield, that records the voices of the last remaining generation, these incredible memories, and it's so important that people should read this and, you know, learn what the amazing, you know, what they endured back in 1940.